Right, this next section, we're working with what they called trigonometry tables, and before they had scientific calculators, that's what they used to find sine, cosine, and tangent of a number. I'll show you briefly how to use this, but I personally would just use a calculator since there's not a lot of trigonometry tables around, maybe in math books. And this one is pretty hard to read, and this is the one they give you. So the way you read a table, here's your angle. Okay, and as you go down, notice the angle gets larger and larger and larger. The numbers across the top, or the names across the top, tell you the values for the angles on the left. So the sine of 0 is 0.0003. The sine of, when we get down here, like 21, the sine of 21 would be 0.3584, this number here, which is, I know it's really blurry. The cosine of 21 would be 0.9336. The tangent would be 0.3839, and the cotangent would be 2.6. Okay, so as you go down this side of the table, you're reading anything on this side, these are the numbers you use for sine, cosine, and tangent. Notice when you get to the bottom, you have sine, cosine, and cotangent. Again, you use those as you read up this side. So as I'm going up this side, let's say I wanted to know 59 degrees here, okay? Instead of using the labels at the top, you use the labels at the bottom. So for 59, the cosine is 0.5152. The sine is 0.8572. The cotangent is 0.6009, and the tangent is 1.6443. So that's how you read a table. I am going to use a calculator rather than coming back to the table each time. But that is how you would read that table. So here we have, using a trigonometric table or a calculator, find the angle whose tangent is 1.48. Now notice here they said find the angle and not find the tangent. We are going backwards, which means we're doing the inverse tangent. And on your calculator it will look something like this. I'll show you with the one that's on my computer what that looks like. So one thing you want to make sure if you're using the calculator on the computer, you want to first of all make sure it's in degrees. Okay, make sure you have these buttons over here, the sine, cosine, and tangent. If I want to know which angle has the tangent of 1.48, again, I need to use the inverse of tangent. And on this calculator, what you do, and on most calculators you'll have like a shift or an inverse button. Okay, you're going to put in your value, 1.48, and then you push inverse. See how the buttons changed just then? And see now my tangent has a little -1. So you push inverse and then push the tangent -1. And now I have my answer, 55.954. Okay. So basically what I did was the inverse tangent of 1.48. And again, what that answers is, what's the angle? The ratio comes out to 1.48. What was the angle that came from? And again, on my calculator, I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. I get 5.595 degrees. Okay, here's another one. Use a table. Again, I'm going to use a calculator. Find the angle. Okay, again, so we're finding the angle. That's when you know you need to use the inverse, or the INV, whose sine is closest to 0.41. Okay, so on a calculator, I would put in my value, 0.41. Then I push the inverse button because I'm trying to find the angle and not the ratio. So I push inverse. Notice my buttons have changed and have the little -1. This one was for sine, so I'm going to push the inverse sine. And I get 24.2. It wants angle to the nearest angle, so 24-degree angle. And again, to do that, I did the inverse sine of 0.41. Okay, again, inverse sine tells you what your angle is. Regular sine tells you what the ratio is when you know the angle. But my answer here would be 24. Using a calculator on the computer, what are the steps in order to find the angle A whose cosine is 0.43. Okay, so again, we're trying to find an angle. We're dealing with cosine here. So let's bring up our calculator, clear it out. I'm going to put in my 0.43. I'm doing inverse, so I do inverse button. Is you put the number in, then you push inverse, then you push cosine on this calculator, and that gives me my answer, 64.53 approximately. Okay, so again, the steps on this computer calculator are to put in the value of the ratio they gave you, 0.43, then you push the inverse button, and then you push cosine, sine, or tangent, whichever one they're having you find.